Hello,
man.
chat. Good, man. How's your day going?
It's going good. I'm wondering if I can make it to 200 in logging in a day
Where are you at
from
in
120.
120?
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm at 140.
I think you can do that.
So seem to go
If
about
you
10
go and
levels an
you end
hour.
up yeah, like are you out in like Edens Grove or whatever? Like you find those ironwood trees? I don't know
So I
if you
can't do
can cut
ironwood till
them.
150,
Okay. That all of
but
a
I
sudden you
got
cut one
it.
of
I
those
got
down and
like
you're
the
like,
world's
whoa.
largest wordwood tree earlier. It was worth like 1100 experience, which to put that in context, like a young tree is worth like 70.
Okay.
So that ends up being a substantial chunk of a level. What I don't know as far as like what is that in a percentage of a level? Are the levels created equal? Is it 200 equal levels, or are they like? I mean, I believe they step up a little, but are they stepping up a lot? Like, how steep is that curve? Like, is 199 to 200 like 50,000 experience, or is it really not that much markedly different than previous ones?
If you're farming stuff, if you're farming materials like at your level range ish, like it, but the problem with that though is that they're also more rare. It's not like, oh, here's the ironwood forest of all nothing, this resource. So it is ends up being more that to find those things, you end up looking, it ends up being a bigger gap. So it's, if you were just cutting those down, I honestly think it actually picks up speed. So
Okay.
it's gated based off of the fact that it's not like, you run around and there's just trees everywhere. It's like, so I always kind of look at it that as an XP per hour kind of problem of how much, oh, I'm just cutting down. Oh, ironwood. I would always prioritize the highest tier tree whenever you would see it. And then otherwise, like, it's just about like putting points on the board at that point, in that regards, because downtime is you're not gaining any experience. And then you also have the weight problem where it's like, okay, now I'm full up on this. Do I drop it or do I just try and go and sell it? And usually there's people willing to buy it, so you can end up at least getting some money.
So the goal is to level refining at the same time, and
Yeah.
so the refining was actually low. It was behind, and it's now past it. So the refining seems to go up really fast. I assume that's because they're expecting you to funnel some of your wood into things like charcoal. So they're not expecting, math-wise, they're not expecting everything you chop to go straight into the lumber, which is what I'm doing with it. I'm slamming it all into lumber. So I don't know.
All right. Well, are you ready to dive in to our topics today? I'm gonna get you caught up on the speed on Throne and Liberty, and
Sure.
we're gonna just kind of break it down. So, hello everyone, and welcome. Today, we're gonna be talking about Throne and Liberty and the West. Chris isn't so much a hype guy, which is actually a really good balance between the two of us. So, most of this is going to be getting him caught up on what we know about Throne and Liberty. But there's also some really interesting things that they're doing as a game and a publisher and what we look at 2023. And I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of his perspective and takes. If you guys don't know Chris, follow him over on Gaming Kinda. Check us out here as a part of our live shows. We typically run these Monday, Tuesday, and Friday. And this is our Friday live show. And Throne of Liberty kind of coming in two parts. So first things first that Chris needs to know, Throne of Liberty was originally Lineage 3. So Lineage 1 and 2 exist out in Korea. It's got a brand name recognition, and for some reason they want to throw that SEO out the window, and they completely changed the game. But it is still kind of that Lineage route, and so this is going to be a Korean-based MMORPG built on Unreal Engine, and it's coming out, they say, first half of 2023. They have not announced the Western publisher, but I could give you one guess, and I'm going to see if you get it right out the bat. Who do you think is publishing this game in the West?
I assume Amazon's the one picking up every unknown person.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Like they have a ton of bandwidth to pick up games and publish them, and they have no backlog of in-house studio or existing relationships to fill that bandwidth. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking for a AAA level publisher available at indie level introductions, it's like, how do I meet an all-star who will also meet me for coffee? Like Amazon will take your call because they are looking to make headway in the publishing space. It almost feels like New World is really just a Wii Sports, where it's an in-house demo that just shows what they can do. It like
Of-
as big as
yeah.
New World does not even at this point, seeing how much money they're putting into developing New World and the fact that the monetization just really never kicked in like I thought it would.
Yeah.
It feels like it's Wii Fit, Wii Sports. It feels like it's a mixtape to say, here's what we can do. Call us if you have a game.
Yes. And that's exactly what I said. Like New World as a set piece for AWS, their Amazon Game Services, Amazon Web Services, the scalability. We're seeing that already with Blue Protocol. Throne and Liberty is their next big announcement. I'm going to guess that's going to be sometime in March, because here's also what's happening, because this is what's I think is kind of interesting. We really don't know much about this game. This could be a positive or a negative, right? Because when it comes down to it, their final test is an in-person physical test in South Korea. There's no online downloading, data mining, any of this stuff. You physically have to go to the spot to help conduct the test, which there has been mixed kind of reception to this, right? Because are you hiding something is one narrative, which they could be, right? Like, hey, no one's actually seen and played the game. Turns out it's not well, or it's that the other side of the other narrative, which is actually like where I kind of fall into this perspective. It's that there is really a lot that we don't know. So it's not a solved game. It's not a game that when it comes down to it, I know more about Blue Protocol through data mines already based off of client leaks and things like that than we really do know for Throne and Liberty outside of what they've revealed with certain gameplay and more. And also I said I'd shout out to Jordan, and he says he's the biggest Throne and Liberty fan for 2023. So thank you so much for joining us live, Jordan. I appreciate that.
So the media tour for Final Fantasy 14 is a closed beta, just like that.
Exactly.
It's wildly closed. The first time you and I were invited to one, it was on their physical hardware, and we
flew there.
We flew there on our own dime, and to get the chance to play. They said, we have a computer that you guys are welcome to play it on, but we're not going to pay for your air travel. You got to get here. And so we went. Actually, the exact response was, we'd love to have you if you're in the area. And so then we're like, all right, we're not in California, but we can be.
Yeah. That's a solvable problem before 2020.
And so then the next media tour we were invited to was you basically VPN'd into, you basically remote logged into their hardware again, which was on a private server. And these are incredibly precise alpha state servers. Like they are spun off the development cycle. And so like there may have been decisions they've made since then. You may run into bugs that are already fixed. And they are wildly limited. Maybe they've stripped the names off of NPCs. They've removed quest data. They've removed audio files, anything that they're not ready for you to see or they think would be spoilery. So even if you had unlimited access to it, the amount of information you even could mine has been stripped out. They're demo clients. And so we've seen this with a game that we didn't think was trying to hide anything maliciously. So like I am willing to give somebody the benefit of the doubt, having been through that experience. The other side of it, though, is a very like Forspoken feel, keeping Square Enix as our example here, where
why would we do that? Must be fans.
there are certain industry trends that if you buck all of them, the hairs on the back of your neck should stand up a little bit.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think that's
a little weird.
The best advice for gamers in that regards is not to put your entire like joy and happiness like in the success of a game. And that ends up always being the case. Like if you go in with this mindset, like, well, you know what, I'm gonna put either in some money. We don't really even know the monetization structure of that, and that's where the narrative in and of itself is like, well, we don't know how they're going to monetize us, but they have a wide range of monetization options. They publish, Guild Wars, which a lot of people really enjoy that game and enjoy its monetization structure. But then they also publish other games that people feel are maybe a little bit more on the predatory side of things. So it's like, just like, oh my gosh, Square Enix, because like you look at Square Enix's full library and then you're like, yeah, we've got that too. And they are all kind of just as a part of this portfolio, as opposed to like just narrowing it down into like one specific idea. But I think it's interesting because with this game that's been so long in development and the fact that it has, I would say, been so underhyped from a lot within the community. Seeing like this kind of start into 2023, a lot of people, putting that new MMO hope out there, which in my mind has traditionally been a curse, because there is going to be a lot of hype regarding a new MMO, because it felt like we kind of came out of this big valley and gap between like new MMO, style. And now all of a sudden this year alone, Blue Protocol, Throne and Liberty, like I'm probably even forgetting a handful. I mean, I don't know, the day before ish, like we'll see if that ends up becoming anything. But and then also like they just had their fourth quarter, kind of result, and like announcing even more MMORPGs. And we also saw like Tower, like we've seen even in the mobile and more gacha space, Tower Fantasy kind of stepping in to kind of play and fill in that gap, trying to maybe take a little bit from Genshin. I think all those two games, Genshin and Tower, are really just going to help boost into Blue Protocol, which will have a more kind of established kind of, meteor experience, at least from what's all to be believed. But the trailer from and what they've released for Throne of Liberty, just to kind of catch you up to speed in terms of what can you expect out of the gameplay, what is there going to be, what are they doing, are they doing anything new or interesting? And it's like with any MMO out there right now, like they're kind of looking at a couple different things and bringing those in. It's coming to PC and console, Xbox and PS5 confirmed, controller support confirmed. Crossplay has not yet been confirmed, but it seems pretty strange because they'll also stream this game to you over your mobile phone. Now, it's not running on your phone; it's running in a streaming service elsewhere, and they'll stream that to your phone. So they're not like, oh, and then here's the mobile version of that that is now running on a phone physically. And then on that note itself is that it looks like there might be kind of a hybrid tab target, like we've seen maybe with Ashes or even with Guild Wars. So some people have expressed a little bit of disappointment that it isn't a full action, MMORPG, but it does have the classless base system that New World offers. So you've been playing New World right now. You've got the two weapons that kind of define your class. This is the same aspect. You have two weapons, and based off the weapon, then your skills are then prevalent, which also feels very akin to Guild Wars, in my opinion. Any thoughts?
Yeah. So when you start to talk about classes and weapons, like at first it's going to be what's your initial offering and what is the pace at which you're going to update these, which immediately makes me ask a question of, is this like Lost Ark, where there's enough based on another game that we are pulling from an existing backlog, or is this an all new IP? Like, are we following a release schedule in Korea where they've got 2 years in the wings, and so they're going to be able to kind of slam it? Like, that was the advantage Lost Ark had.
Yeah,
that they could hit a patch cadence that was unnatural because it wasn't real patches.
Yeah, and within Lost Ark, as everybody started to cool off the game, oh boom, here's the new raid. Oh, okay, I'm back in. And in and of
literally just watching analytics number. Right. The moment it drops, you could just toss something out because you have just a whole set
years.
Of patches.
You have years of pulling that in. And so when it comes down to that, no, like Throne and Liberty is launching globally across the planes. So there is not a roadmap that people have. And that was something that truly was an advantage to Lost Ark and continues to be so. It had the ability to have a fan base, have plenty of content, continue to roll that out as a part of that release so that you're constantly feeding. At some point, just like with Phantasy Star and more, you do get into parity, but at that point you've already really established yourself that people are like, oh, I already know what this game is. I already either like this game or I don't like this game, and going from there.
Parity doesn't feel bad in games that have a backlog. When you look at games like Guild Wars, World of Warcraft, and Final Fantasy that have 10 years of backlog, and somebody goes, I'm bored with this patch schedule, fans of the game will go, okay, but have you done all this other stuff? And so, like, the nice thing is by the time Lost Ark hits parity, it's come out so fast that for the average player, they're just picking off the cherries and the cream off the top from every patch, which means there's all this other stuff. It's like, well, have you gone and gotten all your Mogoko seeds? Like, there's so much that you could go do to dive deeper into Lost Ark. And that's a real advantage that, like, a new game can't afford to do that. Like, people think Ashes of Creation is going to come in with this huge backlog, but you're going to be excited to release it. You're going to want feedback. My God, can you imagine if you were just bushwhacking through the development process and you're just macheting in this direction and you get all the way to this pond and everybody's like, we should have gone to that pond. Well, the fork for that was 2 miles ago. So like the advantage of releasing is you want that feedback to get started, which Lost Ark had. They just had it from their Korean base. And so you want that, you don't want to get that far off. And you also want to start recouping your money. Like from a restaurant standpoint, like that's great if you can afford to do a couple of soft opens and cook for some families, maybe have some private events. But at some point, you're ready to have customers. If you've never been to a soft open in a restaurant, sometimes they're free. You sit down, the whole evening is free. All the food is prepared, and the experience can be, I mean, it's like going to a barber school to like let them cut your hair. Like, yeah, the haircut's free. It's not going to be your best haircut. And maybe if it was this time, that's great. Go back again. It won't be your best haircut twice in a row. Like, it's like, there's a reason it's free. And so at some point that restaurant's like, okay, we've learned enough. We're not done making mistakes, but we've learned enough. We're ready to start collecting people's money. And so I just kind of wondered about that, because that's going to be the uphill battle here. Like you're starting to describe the content types, and that's great. You're going to have dungeons, you're going to have classes, you're going to have weapons, you're going to have cosmetics, you're going to have quests, you're going to have story, voice acting, a world to explore, all these things. That's awesome. Yeah. The MMO, that's the basics for an MMO. How are you going to have enough? Because while the total quantity of hours available in New World on launch was probably thousands, the average player is going to like all of it.
Right.
They're going to like
even still
20%,
like
and that 20%, they're going to do it in the first week.
What ended up really, like, when you start to look at the analytics, a lot of the people who are like, yeah, like I played and yeah, there was problems, but I continued to play. And they're like, I'm at 2,000 hours. I'm at 3,000 hours. And it's like, you know what? I need a break. Like, yes, you've consumed everything that this game has to offer. And now, unfortunately, you must wait. And then there's always there's a weird thing that I think is baked into us as MMO fans. It's like, you don't want to take a break, and so that ends up causing some friction. You're like, but I want to keep playing. This is where my community is. I so my friend just joined and he wants to, and he's going through it now, and I want to be there, but I also just put in 3,000 hours. Like, that's a lot of time, when it comes down to the balance of these games themselves. Now, one of the things they're doing interesting, this is one of the things that I'm very curious, because especially your perspective, yes, they're going to have dungeons, but they're not instance. Their dungeons actually then exist as a part of this open world as well. We haven't actually seen that style of dungeon. In a modern MMO, we've seen that's a part of the original offering of the sandbox MMOs, but that's one of the things that they've kind of highlighted, where you could just go into a dungeon, and they showed off a couple of them. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about non-instanced dungeons?
So open world dungeons are a thing that are regularly run in New World. There are a couple different areas that act like that in historic MMOs, like World of Warcraft. The one that is still farmed to this day that's very old is the Saltstone Cave in Tanaris. And it is farmed because it is the only place to find the Saltstone set, which is a plate mail set that is equipable in a way that reveals a lot of skin. So it tends to carry a healthy amount of market value, because nobody is a degenerate, and that is why it is worth more than any other plate set. So like, these things exist, and it's usually either a density of mobs, and so it's done as a group. The Saltstone's Cave is not particularly hard, or it is something that is done where it is a bunch of elites. And so you can think of areas like that throughout World of Warcraft. Final Fantasy doesn't have that dangerous of an open world, but Guild Wars gets like this as well, where you get into these concepts of like, well, meta events can be very, very dangerous. And so what makes them functional is that a group of players will do this. What's hard about this is a couple of things. First of all, what happens if you take a public dungeon idea? Every game has a spin on it. Some games lean into it heavily, some games don't.
Like Amanda saying that ESO has some public dungeons. So thank you very much, Amanda. Yeah.
So what happens if 200 people show up, or 400 people show up? Early, I said Final Fantasy doesn't have it, but hunt trains are the closest thing. Right. Early expansion hunt trains, you have 400 people in the zone. What happens? Is there going to be a cap on the zone? B, can your servers handle it? C, will everybody get full credit? And that starts to question things like, will the monster's health scale with the group? And how will it adjust for that? And so seasonal events within New World have this issue. Like, how do you deal with it when 2 billion people show up.
Right.
Because you said public.
Yeah.
So if you say public, hey, there's a guy giving out free steaks and
Let's
anybody's
go.
welcome.
Oh,
you're going to run into fire code. Like you're going to run into an issue where there's not enough room in the restaurant.
yeah, I love free steaks.
Going to go.
Yeah, I love free steaks and I love public dungeons. And so it's interesting because you hit the nail right on the head. You know, when it comes down to scaling, this is one of the things I think has made the public aspect of content, open world content, a real struggle for the MMO because they either don't do scaling or they never get the scaling right. So it's a hard line, right? But the thing I like about them is also its variability. One of the things that I like about New World is that one of the variety being the spice of life, one of the things that helps change is that in an instance dungeon, the strength is in the curated experience. If we're designing a game and we know that there's going to be only 5 people, these are going to be the roles that they entail. You can build in mechanics and design features that take advantage and maybe challenge those players within a certain piece of content. When you had in that variability that, oh, now there's 200 people, yeah, things get crazy. And I think that the perfect balance is offering maybe a bit of both to have, you know, some of these kind of like battleground-esque, you know, curated experiences. But the open world, what actually makes that interesting, especially over time, is it could just be 5 people or it could be 500. But that comes down into how do you then adjust it? Because I don't think a lot of people would end up having fun is if they go into the dungeon. It would be fun a couple of times where you just kind of everybody coordinates and you get these just massive murder trains rolling through the dungeon at one point in time.
That's what happens in New World.
It can be a lot of fun. It can be also very community focused, but it would be really cool to see if the dungeon was like, whoa, we got a lot of people here. And because of that, all of a sudden spawns, you know, increase and things get a little bit more wild. There's going to be a give and take, right? Because sometimes you could be running in the middle of the day and it could only be 20 people. And you don't want it to be like the only way we can ever clear this is if we get everybody involved. But I like that aspect. I like the fact that like you could be running along in the dungeon and all of a sudden, you know, just like with the hunt trains in Final Fantasy 14, one of the exciting things about the open world that I don't feel like Final Fantasy 14 really truly takes advantage of, like Eureka in and of itself, and even Boja, like I thought really took advantage, but that was still instance-based content. But within the open world, it's like when you see the hunt train just coming over the cliff and you just see all the wide, crazy mounts and things like that. It is just something that I think is a joyful moment because then you as a player, especially as a low-level player, is like, where is everybody going? What's happening? What's going on over here? Same thing with the fates when you would see them bring in the relic, fate grind, etc. Like all of a sudden you just see like swarms of people doing something and either you're a part of it or you wish that you were a part of it. And that essentially kind of, I think, is a motivating factor, one of those things that drives people forward and going and, you know, going into that. Now, and that's what, yeah, exactly what I was pointing out.
Because really hard. Because the problem is at that point,
yeah.
So like WoW has had like anniversary dragons and things like that where they've tried to make it kind of scale with you. But then what happens is people who just show up and think there's a million people here so I can be lazy, or they show up under geared or something like that. If it scales to add those people in, then you're weakening it. Yeah. You're actually losing ground. It's like, okay, there's 3 times as many people here, so it only has twice as much life. But the average skill rating here is actually going down faster than that because the people who are joining are just here to be part of this. And that's really neat. So how do you handle that? How do you
auto-attacking, yeah.
Yeah,
well, who knows? Like, I would personally design a mechanic that would wipe those people off the map. It's like all of a sudden, it's like, okay, like if we were anticipating that at least the bare minimum, and if someone is like bare minimum in terms of play, if someone literally is just like, oh, we can detect that they're just auto attacking and AFKing, like that would be how I would do it. Is I would design a mechanic that would detect that and then literally just delete that person, just like, but with a massive attack, and it's like, oh, you died. You know, it's like, okay, yeah. And now, you know, and now you have to be respawned and etc. So that's something that I would think that within game design, who knows, maybe even AI, and as that gets more and more integrated, could actually kind of figure that out and detect that as you as a player. So that's something that would be, I don't know, discouraged over the course of time. You know, that would just be kind of how I would approach it. But we don't know how they are approaching it because we haven't obviously seen it in action. One of the things that will be interesting to see in action is data. Like, is this fun? Are people having fun? Are they abusing it? Is this like, because we've seen, you know, gamers will optimize the fun out of anything, but I go back to Final Fantasy 11 and doing summon or burn parties. like in the caves. Like they were wild, they were fun, it was insane. And yes, it was kind of, boosting your level and cheating to a degree, but it was there. It was like you could do this, and that was something that a lot of people would take part in. And it was just fun because I remember running through like running myself through as a lower level player, and all of a sudden it's like you just see all the monsters swarm and then like them all go down, and you're like, what is happening? And learning about what things and people come up with, like by talking and by experiencing it and being witness to it, is pretty cool, as opposed to only just kind of finding all those kind of things out online.
Well, those are kind of the questions I have. I think public dungeons can be really fun. I think chest runs in New World are really fun.
Yeah.
I think EVE Online has made playing with large groups of people like a key component to having the fun.
Yeah.
And those moments when it happens are really fond memories, even if they're crap during. So like it's still important to have them. When you think about hunt trains and fate trains in Final Fantasy, you think about big events in the past like anniversary dragons or AQ or pre-patch events within World of Warcraft, where like people are kind of auto attacking because their computers are lagging. Like they can't even render everybody in. It's just shenanigans. Metas in Guild Wars, like those are a key component, and not continuing to develop and foster those would be a huge mistake because it is very community driven. So like I think public dungeons and some sort of public event, public meta, public raid, whatever you want to call it, where lots of people are fighting against something that they're going to overcome through just sheer numbers, is really neat. There's a reason instance dungeons usually accompany this. Somebody wants something that's tuned a little better than like, oh, you guys earned that over 3 hours with 5 people? Yeah, we went in with 50 and it died.
It was dead.
Yeah. And so...
Yeah. That's actually one of the things, like I want to get to Death Danish's comment here because I think we bring up a good point, but that's one of the things I'm looking forward to this summer in New World, because they're adding in the ability to do kind of raid grouping, because they're adding in an instance-based raid. And then you couple that with the idea that now you can also take that UI out in the open world for the chest runs and the open world bosses and things like that. Like marry both. You don't like... We don't need to, I mean, this is me spending Amazon's money for free because I can do that. I'm just a commenter here in this case. But like, don't just sit here and prioritize instance content. It's important. You should have it. It adds in value. There's a lot that you can do with that. Also have open world content. Like if you make an instance raid, make an open world raid. If you make an instance dungeon, make an open world dungeon. And then that way players can always kind of choose what fits them for the best, their time choice. And then you kind of get the best of both worlds. Like Kyrian over there says, missing open world dungeons on Twitch. And speaking of which, guys, thank you guys for the 5 likes here on the YouTube. The pinned comment, or just disappeared for some reason, was for the YouTube share. So if you guys want me to highlight your comments here on the show, just like Death Danish, be sure to also be lurking on the YouTube side of things so I can pull these up. So Death Danish says, I'm in, look at the fates and the critical engagements in Bozja Zadnor. No issues with scaling. Encounters are still enjoyable and very difficult. It can be done. It's just a lot of work. And I absolutely agree. I think Bozja Zadnor was some of the most fun that I've had, even with leveling in an Endwalker, going back into the zones and being able to take part. Like, I don't know what about it is that I enjoy the most, but being able to run from place to place, doing the content that had mechanics that if you weren't paying attention, like they would kill you. They like there was an actual, and the risk is that you would lose metal. So there was like a, kind of a cost benefit there. So you don't want to just be, barely paying attention. Even if you're just auto attacking, you still have to move and get out of the way of certain mechanics. And then having that tap into the critical engagements themselves, which was that instance, set that would scale. I thought they actually did probably the best job I've seen in scaling in any MMO when it comes to that kind of content. What do you think?
I mean, best scaling is really broad.
I don't have another thing that has done it better. So the best that I've seen so far.
So I think the question about scaling is, what are you going to do long term, right? And so like scaling is very momentary. When you talk about like a PvP game, that's where scaling is most real time, but it's the same idea. And so within PvP, if you could come up with perfect balance where every class had like a perfect rock, paper, scissors, you have a 3-class game, and there's a warrior and a mage and a rogue, and mage beats rogue, rogue beats warrior, warrior beats mage, and it just goes around and around. And then like somehow you balanced it in a way where 2s are interesting and then 3s are interesting, and then Sixes are interesting, and you've got this perfectly balanced game. All the outcomes, all your leaderboards say that every class is equally viable. Well, either A, there's not enough differences between your class, and they all have the same basic auto attack, the same basic self heal, the same, in which case it's boring. Or B, you truly have created the world's best balance ever.
Mm-hmm.
And players will A, look to beat it. They'll look to just push it out of balance, or they'll get bored. So there starts to be something where, like, let's get it close to balanced, and let's do that often. So if you could go through multiple patch cycles where, in that example, Mage was a little bit favored, but the next patch Warrior was a little bit favored, and the next patch Rogue was favored, but only when it was with a Mage in twos. And like, you could start to create this variety. That's what's kind of the spice of life there. And so that's what makes things like Warhammer work fairly well. It sucks when one class is on top an entire expansion. It sucks when one army is in top an entire edition. You want there to be some variety. So when you talk about how is it balanced, there is something fun about something being seasonal. So if you have an open world dungeon that's the best thing to do this patch cycle, and the next patch cycle, instance dungeons are the best thing to do, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
So as far as balancing it, I would say, like, balance your content around the current flavor of what you want people doing. And so if people are having fun running large group content, go pick something that's large group and encourage that. And if you're seeing people start to burn out on that, ideally in a perfect world, you would already have something in the pipe that was something a little more intimate, a little more like instance content or solo content or something like that. And I think that comes down to content planning, and like content organization is key in launching an MMO. And that's why something like Final Fantasy that has this recipe where every patch and every half patch has this predetermined flavor. And you don't quite know exactly how it's seasoned. There's a little bit of surprise when you start to look months and years out, but there is a base core tenet that starts to function like these pre-prepared meals, these Home Chef, Blue Apron, HelloFresh, these type things where if you order them long enough, you start to understand, okay, there's always going to be kind of the same starch, the same protein, the same veggies. And what's going to change is, oh, this time it's with lime. Oh, that's kind of nice. But they know, like, no matter how good it is, oh, well, the best meal they have is meatloaf or whatever. That's fine. Don't order a whole week of meatloaf. Like, it doesn't matter how good it is. It's not that good. At some point, you're going to want something different. So when it comes to balance, my question is, how are you incentivizing something today? And how do you plan on incentivizing something different tomorrow? And is that going to feel really forced? Where World of Warcraft's run into trouble in the past is when it feels forced, that you're like, oh, they don't want me. They want me doing open world quests, which means in order to raid, I have to do open world. It's not encouraged, it's required.
So, we don't honestly don't. Like, there's things that you have, the questions that I think are echoed those throughout the community, because we've seen the information that they've provided, and now we're just patiently waiting for the final test, they call it, out in Korea to be complete before they start rolling out with I would assume their marketing campaign and more. I bet we're going to see a Western beta test. Like, I don't think that it's because they call this the final test that's for Korea, but as a part of the Western market, I'm assuming Amazon is going to have some kind of plan.
It'll be held in Toledo. You're gonna have to go there.
Oh man, it will be just why there's a program like we used like the last time for the media tour Parsec or whatever, that it's like, if you want to keep the code from getting out into people dissecting the whole thing, as a part of any of these, you could be like, yeah, we're going to sign up for this and we're going to do this test, and it's going, we're going to have it a little bit more controlled. It does limit your ability to test a wide range of machines, because that's going to be something that'll be interesting, because that's something we see, a lot with New World. A lot of people might have performance issues because their machines are a little bit on the older side and things like that, to which I would say, if you guys have GeForce Now, or you have, a 35 megabit down internet connection, consider checking out GeForce Now. It runs New World. It like incredible. It's absolutely incredible. That's one of the things.
Forspoken.
No, it won't. Not GeForce Now, because Square Enix doesn't support Forspoken, and I'm about to get on a rant because I literally.
I thought the whole benefit of GeForce Now timing was that it's on the 4090.
It is on the 40. No, it is that Square Enix legitimately has like no support. The only games that were actually touching GeForce Now were the Square Enix Western studios. I think not even all of them. There's not a single Final Fantasy game. There's not Forspoken. Forspoken would be incredible on the GeForce Now. Now I've been playing it through this.
They could make a deal with Nvidia. There's bound to be some behind the scenes deal where like it comes with 1 free month of GeForce Now. Like,
what do we need to do? Like, who do we need to call? Because it is legitimately like a missed opportunity for Forspoken not to be on GeForce Now.
I just heard GeForce Now went to the 49ers. I was like, oh, just in time for Forspoken.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so GeForce Now, awesome service, lacking games. I don't know why. They need to figure it out. And it's legitimately like,
I thought it was because like, oh, Blizzard's going to sign a deal with xCloud. And so they don't want to let their games on GeForce Now because that gives them a bargaining chip. But when Square Enix is like, our bargaining chip is that we're never going to partner with anybody.
Yeah, we're not on any platform.
Why?
Not a
like they're not even holding out for money. They just, no, I don't like anything fun or exciting. Come on, man.
Oh man, it's so what like that's the change that I need in my life. Like that is legitimately the change that I need in my life. Is that would be so good. And it's so frustrating because when I do a sync on like it's like, hey, see if there's any of my new Steam games on GeForce Now, that number's gone down. And I don't know why. I have
the game fast enough. Summer Steam sale around the corner. Summer's going to be here, and you're going to be able to finally increase your GeForce Now selection.
Well, we'll see. But it's great. Like it is a tool that, like, if I'm not sitting here at this gaming computer, opens up all my gaming options available. So my only hope out of the whole Activision Blizzard, like all of that, is like literally just publish your games places. Like if somebody wants to play on GeForce Now, let them. They're still buying your game. They still have, like, stop with it. Like xCloud, xCloud is great. Except for that, they don't let you play the games that you own. They only let you play the games that are actually also on Game Pass. So it's not like I could purchase a game on my Xbox and just stream it through xCloud. At least not yet. And I don't know why. Anyhow, like I could literally just like rant on this for like another 30 minutes, and I don't want to, because I do want to talk about PvP and Throne of Liberty, because as probably you might be, not surprised to learn, some PvP players are kind of upset based off of what they've decided to do with PvP. And they've made it opt-in PvP. You do not need to participate in PvP.
Opt-in is the best solution for the modern gamer. Unless you're building like Street Fighter and it's like, if I can't
I'm just here for the PvE.
Fight the guy, we're just gonna hug each other for a match. Like, unless PvP is the core component. Like, I play a MOBA, but I don't play with PvP on. What are you doing? But like when you were talking about an MMO, even if I'm a hardcore PvP player, there are times that you don't want a PvP. If they have an engaging crafting and gathering system, if they have a cool world to explore, if they have quests worth doing, it might be possible that I want to talk to an NPC. And yes, I am a slow reader and I'm reading a quest, and then some guy comes up and just slams me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, sorry, I was doing an escort quest. Which, don't get me wrong, if their solution to open world PvP is that there will be no more escort quests, worth it. But as far as I know, you are not allowed to release an MMO. I believe the MMO mafia will come burn down your servers if you do not release with at least one escort quest, which means I don't want PvP. So like, it'd be nice to turn that crap off while I'm doing the escort quest that we all love so much.
Mm-hmm.
So like, opt-in works. Opt-in works even for the most hardcore PvP players. And then just imagine a world where you have a friend that you want to share this game with who isn't as hardcore as you. So it allows a wider variety of players, which these are games that grow. Yes, the ads work, the Twitch campaigns work, those things are great. But the best people they can get to join this game are people that are coming into an existing infrastructure. Somebody that is invited, like, hey, in college we used to play games together. You remember Todd? You remember Steven? Oh, yeah, I remember Todd and Steven. Well, the three of us have been playing this game together. You should join us. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Great. So like that word of mouth growth is amazing. And for you to do that, you have to be able to trust that maybe people are friends with people that aren't identical to themselves.
Yeah. And I think what you just said there, I think highlights also the vast importance of them bringing in cross-play, cross-save into Throne of Liberty. The fact that they have already announced it for consoles, for PC, the stream it to your daggum cell phone. Imagine that level and that power of word of mouth to be able to sit down and say, hey, you know what, guys, Brian and Chris, we just really are connecting with Throne of Liberty right now. Like, we are having a lot of fun. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of things for everybody. We can go do this. We can go do this. Guess what? It doesn't mean that, oh, there, like if you were going to play, we're going to play Diablo. It's like, oh, there's 4 people or, whatever the max is. I think maybe 5 for 5, 4 or whatever for the party size. Like, oh, okay. Well, oh man, there's 6 of us. Oh, not a problem. And okay, cool. And what do you need to do? Oh, just download the game. Does it matter what platform I'm on? Not at all. Like, here we go.
Imagine the day if we had browser-based games. My God. What do you do? Oh, just click the link.
Just click this link. You just you're playing. That's actually one of the things that's really interesting, kind of to pivot, kind of a bit. So Stadia shut down, and like that in and of itself, I think is hilarious because from a technological perspective, they, I think, had the best like service hands down.
Oh yeah.
Like I praise GeForce Now. We use Shadow PC. Like, those are services that I really like and enjoy. The ease of access to get into a Stadia game, like, it just click a link and you're in. However, clearly Google is just ridiculous. I'm kind of personally hoping that we could see them take that technology and just sell it to Nintendo. Like, Nintendo's not going to do anything like in this space, but just give it to them, and let them just say, cool, hey, we're not going to call it Stadia. We're literally just going to have, like, when you look at the Switch, like, it would be so much cooler also, hey, play your games locally, or you can also stream them at a higher fidelity.
Nintendo is something that powerful. We'd be running around with our little Miis in a big public space, and then to enter your own game, you'd have to enter like a Yoshi sign and then a triangle and then an exclamation point, and then it would suck you off into your own private game. And it's like, well, can I join with my friends? No. Why did you do this? I'm running around in a Mario mansion and I have to jump into the mirror, but I have to jump in my own mirror, and nobody else is welcome in my mirror. What are you doing, Nintendo? And then like Nintendo got mad at Temtem, and it's like, were you gonna do it? No. And then I was like, well, maybe this will push them in, right? Maybe this will push them in. Like, WoW Classic shut down the Classic servers because they were like, oh God, people actually do want this. So maybe Nintendo, no, they won't. No. They just want Temtem to stop. They don't actually want to do what Temtem is doing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because, like, right now Google's in a massive panic. Like, they've called Code Red. Microsoft owns actually ChatGPT, and so Google has been putting in an all hands on deck, and it's just, I don't know. There's something poetic about it because, like, the more that I've talked to my friends and learned more about like some of the problems that these big tech companies have, like, advancement and everything is all about releasing product. It's not about maintaining or supporting it. So it's like, hey, you were on a team that released a product, and it's like, it turns out we shut that down pretty quickly after, but here's your promotion, way to release something, and it's like that mindset, I feel like, is what Google has just been on. They're just like, we're going to go in 1,000 different directions, and it doesn't matter because we just have unlimited money. And now essentially with ChatGPT, it has the potential to disrupt their search engine, which is kind of their biggest primary aspect, because ChatGPT has been shown to at least act as semi better in terms of your search, because you can actually just get everything and then compile it, as opposed to like having to sift through countless just reposted, regurgitated, even almost probably AI generated articles.
I'm super concerned about like the AI generation long term, but did you see that somebody made a chatbot of Asmongold?
Yeah.
And they asked him what his thoughts were on somebody buying a Skyforge PC, his PC company, with the phallic symbol there, and he said why, and then the AI goes, why would I buy that when I could spend that same amount of money on Dr. Pepper?
Brilliant. Oh. I tell you, absolutely genius. I have one other kind of topic for you in and of itself, because I think that pretty much gets you caught up on Throne of Liberty. They've got their closed physical beta at the end of this month, and then essentially we'll shift into March, where I'm being that if they're still targeting the first half of 2023, I think that's when we'll start to see bigger marketing pushes, a lot more detailed information to cover for you guys and things like that. So, is there any other final Throne and Liberty, questions that you have before we jump into our next segment?
No, I'm just like, it's just about content. It's just about content. And like at the end of the day, there's nothing they can tell us. They're going to tell us it's an engaging open world. There's plenty to do, and you're going to find yourself on endless adventures. But it's literally just, well, then show me endless adventures, because I have yet to find a game where people can't just consume everything off the vine and then go, well, I ate 600 pounds today and now I'm still hungry.
Yeah.
Well, who told you to do that?
I played 6,000 hours and, over the course of 3 months. It's, where's the content? It's like, that was the content. We created 6,000.
How long is that supposed to last? Years?
Oh,
years.
No. Well, yeah. So it'll be neat to see, because it's, as we always kind of, try to remind everybody, it's not just about launch. It's about how the patch schedule comes out. How's their communication, and how is that relationship with the developers and the players? Because if do they understand? Is that communication going well? And that's why, like, I think Amazon makes the absolute most sense as the global publisher. Like, when it comes down to it, that's going to add another big MMO into their catalog. They recently not just partnered, but they actually own the Tomb Raider franchise now. They purchased that from Embracer Group. And I think essentially where you're going to start to see over the course of the next decade is it's going to be pretty wild, especially then when you start to think about their marketing capacity with drops, with Prime and more. It's going to be one of those games that they'll have constantly in your feed some way. There'll be some way that you'll be hearing about Throne and Liberty at least every couple of months. Something's going to be happening in that regards. But let's shift into another games as a service, a big game now owned by Sony. It is set to release on February 28th. Chris has been noted to be his comment or his review of Destiny is, I don't know why I stopped playing it. And every time I restart, I have a good time. But then eventually it just becomes one of those games that just falls by the wayside. And that's the same experience that I usually have. I always look at Destiny in terms of like, there's 2 seasons for me. There's the launch window and then there's the off season. And it's like, okay, I play a lot going into the expansion launch. I play the expansion and then some, and then it just kind of fades itself into the background for a little while. But Lightfall looks to be introducing a lot of really cool new things that we've been asking for a long time. For me personally, I'm the most excited about loadouts, but they're introducing Guardian ranks and all these different things that I should kind of change up the core gameplay loop. Chris, are you going to be checking out Destiny at all this year? I know that you're currently rocking 4 MMOs, and I'm just kind of curious to see what's your take on this. Is this going to be something you just kind of pick up to play to have that, that yearly hit, or is this something that you're going to be looking to add into just your overall kind of like daily, or your weekly content schedule?
Well, if you want to talk about niche video, what should be your 5th MMO is probably one of the only things you could type into Google. And they're like,
one video.
I don't know. Bing can figure it out now, but Google is like, that is unexplored territory. We would need AI to explore what your 5th MMO should be. So I think that if I'm going to add another MMO to my life, I want it to be something that broadens what I understand the MMOs to be. So like, as much as people keep saying like, you should play ESO or something like this, like I want something with less overlap. And so I think the 2 most logical ones for me to consider are Destiny and RuneScape, as far as something that truly adds something that is drastically different than anything that I do now. And would put me back on that, like, you're a giant noob. And when you say you don't know what's going on, no, you actually don't know what's going on. Like right now, like I feel lost in New World a lot. But like, if you explain it to me in New World words, I know those words, as opposed to if you type RuneScape stuff into there, it's like, okay, now I have to Google all of that. It's like somebody typing out a paragraph in another language, and I have to go translate each word one at a time. It's like, oh, I pushed it through Google Translate. It still didn't make sense. So now I have to look up each individual word and try to figure this out. And so I've thought about getting back into Destiny. Destiny and New World have a lot in common in my mind, actually.
And both action, oriented for sure.
They're both very action oriented. They both have very similar like content pacing, and that like it feels like they released a lot and then told me don't consume it all at once. And then if I did, they were like, well, I don't know. And both of them confused me with their monetization, but seem to be doing fine. And both of them have basically a system where you level really easily, and then you go through a soft cap system where you get up to this like kind of threshold that's relatively easy but is optional. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, you liked all that. What if you're just, what if your name's Alex and you just free climbed up the side of a mountain with no rope? And like everything after that, it's there, but like the 600 to 625 grind in New World or whatever it is at the very end of Destiny right now, like as soon as you kind of get beyond that light cap, there's like that soft. Now they're like, well, I don't know, climb upside down, I guess. We put something in there because some of you are nuts and you want to play this 40 hours a week and you've been playing it 40 hours a week, and we didn't design it for that. So I think New World actually makes it, ironically, New World makes it easier for me to want to get back into Destiny, because New World's kind of shown me how I play a game that's not super clear what the end goal is, as opposed to something like WoW or Final Fantasy, where there's a very clear to-do list presented to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's beyond just clear the raid. Like it's like,
Yeah.
no, if I want to progress, I know exactly where everything comes from.
That's what I thought. Like, Witch Queen did so well over the previous Destiny expansions and content delivery as a part of just like a set piece. Is that with their campaign and legendary campaign, it felt like the story of the game, the campaign of the game, was A, B, C, D. Like it was so nice that I was like, oh, I'm moving forward. We're having a really good time. This is going really, really well. And that's something that I really appreciated about the Witch Queen, because for the longest time, like, hey, you want to get into the game, the core game. Like there's times that in Beyond Light that I was like, am I on the main story line right now? Like, what am I would always find myself like with this weird, like, I'm lost now. I don't know what's the next thing to do. Witch Queen solved that. It looks like they're taking those lessons into Lightfall, which means that even if you're just like, I'm going to play this as a set piece story, I want to see what the big story moment is, then you can kind of experience that. And My Name is Bife is going to help probably get anybody caught up if they have any additional lore questions. I want to shout out to Randy. Thank you so much for hitting that $5 membership club here on YouTube, by the way. Oh my gosh, dude, you are a freaking legend, and we cannot make this content without y'all support. Also to Farmer Girl over on Twitch, continuously gives it out. Looks like Chili Demon has also gifted out a sub. So thank you guys so much for that. When it comes down to Destiny, though, like one of the advice that I end up giving a lot of players is I literally just say, stop worrying about your power level. Like if you're chasing power, you're going to find yourself very frustrated every expansion when all of a sudden they just raise everybody up. It is just the yearly, thing that kind of gates you for the content. I focus in on pure horizontal progression within Destiny, and I've really enjoyed my experience. And that's finding the guns, getting every like weapon that chasing weapons, and then getting their catalysts quests and working and investing the time into, opening up their full power and potential. And having had that shift, it has been a huge enjoyment perspective for the future of this for this game, because like I say, like it's my yearly sub. They don't charge you a subscription for Destiny. I know that was kind of a fake rumor that was leaked out earlier, but it is a yearly sub, like almost like ESO. Like they're just going to take their subscription all at once. Here's the expansion. Here's the annual pass, and then you
ESO
kind
has
of go
an
from
actual sub, like a literal
there. Oh
sub.
yeah, well that's true.
So closer to like if Guild Wars could consistently push out living seasons, like except that those are free when they're launched. So like I don't know. They just want you to be happy.
Yeah.
So they don't want your money. I think that when you look at like Destiny, you talking about lateral progression. So I like pushing power. Like I like it. I like the act of pushing power. I enjoy it. There are limits to how far I'm willing to go for it. So I'm very rarely ever at anything that is considered a hard cap. I'm usually at some sort of soft cap where there were a lot of methods to do here, and then less methods, and then just one method. I usually get down to where there's, either one or just a couple of methods left. And that's kind of how far I push, because I find that you can get about 80 to 90% of the available power for like 10 to 20% of the work. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, for that last 10% of power, that's 90% of the work. And so when playing a lot of MMOs, I don't have time to do that because I don't manage my time well. So as I get better at managing my time, it's not actually that much time. Like when people say I don't have time, getting your Savage raid clears in is something that if you manage your time, it is very, very doable. I just need to get better at that. So I think I can start to close that gap. I won't be getting like ahead of the curve or anything like that, anything equivalent, but I think I
Yeah.
can start rating. But with Destiny, when you talk about lateral progression, they have changed their methods quite a bit over the years. So
Yeah.
let's assume I was a brand new player today. Would I just buy the new expansion? Do I have to buy the? What are they doing now?
Ooh, man, that like buying Destiny is such a like a weird conversation. Remember, like when Asmongold's like, it's so hard to buy Final Fantasy, and he's absolutely right. Like it's like that's why I released a buyer's guide for that game. I've released a buyer's guide for Destiny because Destiny is a la carte. So where Final Fantasy is like all you have to once you're bought, like once you finally have purchased the game and got what you need. Like
Okay.
you buy the expansion and it comes with whatever. So if you miss an expansion, you always just buy the current and it has everything that was previous always bundled into that experience. Destiny has remained a la carte. So if you don't buy Shadowkeep, you have everything but Shadowkeep. So like if you can a la carte it. They have the Legendary Collection, which usually includes everything before. So all the content that you don't have.
Okay.
And then you buy the expansion separately. So right now, if you purchased Destiny 2, this is where it gets like tricky. If you bought the Legendary Edition, you would still need to buy Witch Queen. Most likely, when Lightfall drops, you could buy the Legendary Edition and it includes the Witch Queen. But right now, you would have to say buy if you buy Destiny Witch Queen now, you're going to buy, Lightfall, and there's no bundling of the Witch Queen at the moment. So that's essentially where it gets a little bit tricky. Thankfully, they've stopped sunsetting the content. So the Shadowkeep expansion is remaining as opposed to like Forspoken and what came before. And I really do hope that they bring it back. One of my biggest critiques of it is that it's not content vaulting until you return it to us, until it comes back at some point in the future. Otherwise, it's called deleting. And so you marketing it as vaulting. We haven't seen Forspoken come back. We haven't seen like Red War stuff come back. Will we? And we don't really know the answer to that. But at least they've stopped deleting content. And so that helps me as a player going like, yeah, like as somebody who plays it every year, it's like, yeah, the vaulting system, the deleting system sucks. But I'm not that dramatically impacted because I wasn't doing that old content anyway. Outside of the stuff like would run into like the matchmaking system. But
so then how does it work if I played 2 expansions ago and I come back? Are all of my
stuff is there,
guns and stuff?
Yep.
So I log in and it's all waiting.
Yeah.
And my item level, my light level is just garbage.
Well,
so I play through the new content, and that's going to power level the crap out of my light level. It's going to get me within 10 or 20% of everybody else.
Yeah,
and if you start, and it's going to slow down.
Well, did you play the Witch Queen at all?
No, I missed that.
Okay, so your last one was Beyond Light. So, but if you logged in today, your power level would be at the starting power level of the Witch Queen when that dropped last year. On Lightfall launch, it will be at whatever the starting level. I think that might be the 1580 or whatever. For Lightfall. So like your power level is going to go up regardless, but all your guns and all your progress on quests are primarily there. But if you wanted to play the Witch Queen content, you would still have to purchase the Witch Queen. If you wanted to play Lightfall, you'd have to purchase Lightfall. You could still go to the area, the locations. The game won't stop you from going in there, but there's just not going to be the campaign story quests. You won't have access to any of the guns and the armors and things like that. Okay.
And so within that, what happens to all my old guns and all that are now garbage light levels?
They all get pushed up to the starting light level for the year. So your power you're not going to be like coming back and feeling like you're behind. That's the strength of the system.
And
the downside is
keep all those.
Yeah.
Like all those named weapons.
Yeah.
Is there an endless storage system? Like I feel like there used to be a limited bank.
Well, there like your vault is not unlimited, but you still can pull down from collections. So if you've gotten it before, you can get it again, with the exception of like some of the legendaries have random rolls and you cannot pull down, a random roll from collections. It will just show that you have had it at some point. But for the legendaries, for the named,
can't I just collect all the different random rolls?
You can then store them in your vault.
Oh, no.
But welcome to Destiny. Like but the collection system does make it nice so that you're like, oh yeah, I'm not really using this weapon. like especially from an exotic piece, like you could always like, let me just not have that take up vault space because I'll just download that from the vault, download that from my collections tab at some point in the future. So it kind of acts as that almost in a way WoW transmog system in which that you can see all the weapons, you can see what you've gotten, you see what you don't have, and then I think it gives you hints at how to go and acquire the thing that you don't have.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
I'm
a
most
lot
excited
about it
about
that's,
loadouts though.
yeah, there's a lot about it that's very frustrating.
I
There's a
think
lot
that's with
about it.
every game. Every game's going to have pros and cons, right? Like it's, there's, if there was the perfect game, maybe then everybody would just play that one perfect game, but there's definitely trade-offs for sure.
Okay.
For me, like the only thing I'm really like the thing I'm most excited about is that loadouts are actually coming into the game. You don't need a third-party tool or whatever to kind of build these out. So from a content perspective, one of the things that always frustrated me was like when they would say, "Hey, you need to do this as this subclass." And then that would have me like, oh, man, I don't want to have like now I got to change the subclass. Okay, I'm gonna change my weapons. I'm gonna do this. Oh, I'm gonna do PvE. I'm gonna do PvP. Like I would just, like I just was never that invested in like all of that management to change the content type that I'm doing. But now you can build out your loadouts based off a content type, based off a subclass type, and so much more. So that's gonna be something that I'm very much looking forward to because I think that's gonna help. I think that's gonna be like, oh, this is my raid build. This is my PvP build. This is my Gambit build. This is my this build. And then it gives you a lot of different options so that you can kind of save those. That's the thing I'm also excited about for New World, as that's apparently coming here in the spring, and we should be able to go hands-on with that actually on the PTR probably here in a couple of weeks, if not early March as well. But yeah, that's all I need to talk about.
I'm excited that there's more games coming. I think that's good. And I hope people enjoy the games they play. That's what games are for. So like I like that there's a lot of variety out there. I don't know how I make time for Destiny because every time I hop in, it always feels like there's something about it that just always feels just a little bit cumbersome. And then the moment I take a break, I just slip out and it's like, oh, I guess I don't play that anymore. But like the last time I log out of Destiny never feels like the last time. Like it feels like I just log out for the day.
Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
And I was like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. And then I just never come back. And a lot of that's because they keep changing the strategy. It always feels like they're going in a little bit different direction.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel cohesive enough. And so like I didn't play the last one. The collections tab was something that was added, I think, with Beyond Light, Forspoken, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. And it was great. It was great. And like, so that was a huge move in the right direction. It's a bummer to know that that's not like continuing to advance, like double down on that more. Because the achievements, because that came with a whole bunch of changes that made like the achievement system deeper and all these things. So there was this massive jump in that just felt a lot easier to understand. There was still some clumsiness when like I was like, hey, where do I find this? Or hey, how do I join you in this? And there were still occasionally these moments. But what's hard about that is a lot of the clumsiness just comes from the fact that you changed something that wasn't that way from the start.
Right.
The downside of an existing MMO is that when you change something, it's absolutely swimming upstream. It's always going to run into issues. There's going to be elements of it that are just weird if you make it universal. If you don't make it universal, you're going to be like, how come that isn't over here? The alternative is to be new. And then we're back to the conversation we just had where we talk about an upcoming MMO and we say, are you going to have enough? So like you don't win. It's just a question of like, which thing are you fighting? Yeah. And I think Destiny has definitely been around long enough that they're fighting okay, is this something that's going to work universally? And if so, what are the bugs with that? Do you think Destiny is always going to be Destiny 2 or are they going to move towards a Destiny 3?
Well, we know that after Lightfall, they have the final announced expansion that who knows, they could keep going on from there, but it's called the Final Shape. And I do feel like the Final Shape will conclude Destiny 2. And then essentially they will have some Destiny 3 or just Destiny or something like that to follow it up. But that's still, I would assume at least 2 years away, if not, if they don't decide to say, yep, another expansion, Final Shape Part 2, or something of that nature. So what we have on the roadmap is Lightfall, which is this month, and then next year, Final Shape. And that's all the roadmap that we have for the game. And so you would assume that the Final Shape would have a year's worth of content that would build up into whatever is supposed to happen next. But anyway, guys, if you want to hang out with Chris, he's got New World up and he is working towards logging in at 200 today. And who knows what else as he continues to try to
That's a
unlock
whole
these
day.
achievements.
I started at 120. I'm at 152 right
Woo,
now.
baby. Now you can get those Ironwood.
You can
So
get the Ironwood.
hit the pinned comment, go hang out over on Twitch, and I might be live tonight. My my official game day is scheduled for February 25th. I do have a show in Sanger, a comedy show in Sanger on that night. And on March 11th, I'll be back in Fort Worth at Hyenas. If you guys are interested and want to come, I've posted over on the community page for Ginger Prime and Ginger Prime Comedy. And also I'll be releasing some of my stuff that we actually have filmed here next week. So hopefully you guys look forward to all that good stuff. But I'm going to send you guys on your way. Thanks for being here, and we'll see